And that's the other thing about Mexico. I cannot possibly over exaggerate the care. I guess that's what I want to say. Up and down the line, the consideration, the care, the kindness.
Today we're chatting with a super stylish New Yorker who's created a boss lady lifestyle for herself, her dogs, and her husband, focused on art, advertising, and architecture. She's also a visionary global nomad who chose Mexico as her second home over 2 decades ago. So if making the move to Mexico is on your bucket list this year, sit tight for all the answers and let's dive right in. So the first thing we spoke about the other day was your story of how you fell in love with Mexico and how Mexico became a part of your life way back when is fascinating. So let's just start there.
I was living in Seattle at the time to run a company from New York, which is where I really live. And I was doing a big project for Starbucks. It was their 30th anniversary, and I was setting up press and working with the New York Times to get them placed and everything else. And when I walked back into my hotel room and turned on the TV, a plane had flown into a building. 5 minutes later, another plane had hit the World Trade Center. I tried my best to get out of New York.
Yeah.
I get on a plane. Obviously, no planes were flying. I finally got on a train and got out of it in Chicago because I couldn't take it anymore. Flew back to Seattle, got off that plane and said, I need to go somewhere where nobody's target for anything. And we almost threw a dart at the map, and it hit Puerto Vallarta.
Unreal.
Went down there that week and left 7 days later with a contract to buy a little small apartment on the in Amapas, and that was just getting built at the time. And this realtor who was still in business down there actually sold it to us, and we just fell in love. And so we had that little apartment. Then my mother-in-law was getting frail, so we brought her down and realized that she couldn't possibly live in this 2-bedroom apartment with us. We then built another house right behind Avalon. It's a freestanding house. So there's 4 freestanding houses there, and one of them was one we built. And it was beautiful, and I loved it, except it had no water, no beach. And one of the things I love is the beach. So then we found out that Sierra del Mar Los Arcos, it was going to be right on the beach. I had no business looking at that because I already had a big house, but we did it. And I've never looked back. It was most beautiful. And we started with a pile of dirt. I mean, there was not one thing in the ground when we bought into that building. When you start from absolute scratch, you have an empty canvas. And, so we had to think about how we wanted this place to feel, how we wanted it to look. And, I'm kind of minimalistic in my style, and Mexico is not particularly. Mexico its tradition is colorful and beautiful and vibrant. For some reason, this house with the sea and the sky said more something light, something that was, just very airy and light.
From an architectural perspective too, that property was much more clean and modernist by style. So really not as, traditional, colonial or folkloric as construction had been up until that point. That was a dramatically, different property with a, much newer style.
That's absolutely right. And so that called for furnishings that did not exist in Puerto Vallarta.
That is so true back then.
Mm-hmm. This kind of introduction of minimalism, clean lines. So we did use the wood. We maintained that because that is absolutely beautiful and very clean. So all the doors and all the closet doors, all the drawers in the bedrooms, all built in, made of that beautiful wood. Now, the floor is an interesting story. They had chosen a floor that I didn't like, and it was a kind of a creamy color. And I wanted the floor to be white. I wanted there to be a cement floor. I talked to about 400 people, all of whom assured me that was impossible. So finally, what we ended up doing was getting Italian marble imported. It was complicated, let's put it that way. But almost 20 years later, now they look even more Italian because they've got stains on them, and they've got, like they've just kind of grown into being whatever they are. That was a big thing. The kitchen, everybody wanted us to have a lot of different colored tiles everywhere, but I didn't want that. So it's just white. I do like Gorgonzola, but it's not like that. So that's clean. And then white fabric. I will tell you, we have not changed or had to redo that fabric. This is almost going on 20 years, and it's white.
Right.
Really amazing. So,
and it's onto the ocean, you and Dawn coming in from, the beach and swim trunks and salt air and completely open to the ocean.
I mean, Deborah, you know what it takes to source. And I know you are, scrupulous and relentless in your search for the exact right, whether it's a fabric, whether it's a chair, whatever it is. And Mexico, in those days especially, and you were there,
much more limited supply chain. How did you manage the logistics and the supply chains and the delivery behind the scenes?
I let my husband do it.
So was he there for a long period of time?
A long period of time.
Coming in and suppliers were delivering?
Yes, because I was in the midst of, I'm a creative director, and at the time I was running a global agency called Publicis. So I was really busy. And I was traveling all the time. He was there taking care, because we also moved his mother down, and she was living in the house. She had full live-in people, husband and wife, who took beautiful care of her. And that's the other thing about Mexico. You were just mentioning a lot of people are thinking that's their bucket list, that's their end spot, that's where they. I cannot possibly over exaggerate the kindness and the attitude toward people of age who have needs. They are met. And same with children. I mean, you see the parents with their children. These children someone is holding their hand, and it's not a nanny, it's their dad or their mother. It's such a familial place. I mean, the little girls with their berets, the care. I guess that's what I want to say. Up and down the line, the consideration, the care, the kindness. It's authentic. It's real. We have all people in our homes who come and help us and support us. And, we're all fortunate that the economy has always been such that, we would never have those kind of people in our homes. It would be way too expensive in Canada or the States or, Europe, anywhere. And we've been able to do that. And those people have contributed to, a completely different kind of feeling even in your own home, because they take care of it the way that you would.
Yeah, we have lived through that. If you're talking about 24 years being part of the Puerto Vallarta community, crateinteriors has had a presence in that, that's in that same region for 15 years. And so those decade increments are long enough to see big changes take place in the couples and the families that we've worked with. And we have seen a full cycle of people coming out of their work years into retirement, changing their vacation homes from rental properties to fully occupied, family residences. We've seen people, cross thresholds of, losing a partner and, having to go into estate sale and, make huge changes in their lives, or, a partner becoming critically ill at some point. Those 20 years can be a pivotal moment for people if they started in their 40s
or 50s or 60s.
Your bucket list destination sometimes becomes your final destination.
Yeah.
The things you love to do and the reasons why you were drawn to the beach and the walks and the hikes and the community
and the restaurants and the
restaurants. Your needs can change considerably. And even, navigating, the traditional cobble streets, if you, now have a physical impediment, or you're in a wheelchair, or you need more medical care at home, like your mother-in-law did, changes dramatically. And it's an incredible thing to watch this quite small beach town evolve over the years and raise the bar to meet those needs. And as you say, that incredible culture and compassion and generosity to support and provide love and care for families like yours that have made that a home.
Right. And, it's, you alluded to the idea of healthcare, which I think is important for people to understand who may be 65. Let's say they cut their thing. They don't want to work anymore. They don't want to be in the States, but they're scared to go to Mexico because what happens if they get sick? Well, I have to say, I've watched a lot of people get sick. And the fact of the matter is you'd rather be sick in Mexico than in some other places. The care, the excellence of
care is phenomenal, world class.
The medical care. I'm not talking about the same people, holding your hand or taking care of your teacups. These are professional medical people who are, look, Guadalajara has an amazing medical school. In fact, before I even knew one thing about going to Mexico, I knew like 3 doctors in the States, in Greenwich, Connecticut, at Manhattan, who went to Guadalajara.
We did a whole medical program in Guadalajara. That's right. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
We're talking about all of the decisions that were made. We even had to change a thing, not a thing. Oh, we changed washing machines, mechanical things we've had to change.
That's right.
But now Mexico is offering appliances, to your point, that are, miele, anything you want, you can get.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have a very robust direct import program as well, and we consistently beat out the turn times and the importation times of local retailers. So, supply chain's gotten better, but it's still very quirky. It's just like furnishing somewhere on an island, St. John or St. Kitts. If you're working in any of those places too, you have very limited supply and long turn times and wait times for things to arrive. Everything comes from somewhere else. And even though there's more infrastructure than there ever was before, in the, Jalisco, Nayarit area, you're still working with limited supply chain, and you need to be very patient and also very, very knowledgeable, as you were, with all of these beautiful items that you've imported yourself and freight forwarded to your destination. And I think you were telling me also that quite a bit of the art and furnishings were items that you brought in from other places as well, right? Or had specially made.
That's one thing that we did do, is we bought our art that was actually made in Mexico.
Okay.
And I think that was a really nice, like over this white sofa I've been talking about, we have a big and colorful picture that, it is painted by an artist, and we would go to the galleries, the ones that are Café des Artistes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And find things that were quirky, contemporary. Mexico has a very interesting art history and contemporary, and they taken a lot of aspects and elements of the tradition and made them, completely different. And so I think that the point of importing is something that's interesting, and in some ways I love to see people like you who have created a business whereby Mexican people, Mexican products, and Mexican talent can be, put to work to build these beautiful spaces that are beyond just the traditional, but into the sort of, I don't want to say trend setting, because that makes it sound
like what's next, sort of forwardly.
Right. And because their history is so rich in beauty.
Yes.
They're borrowing from nature, the sky, the sea, where we are the ham between the bread of the jungle and the bread of the sea. And there we sit. The nature, the animals, the whales that are breaching outside of our balcony, it's morning. The place is just, is so incredibly designed.
It's a beautiful, rich cultural heritage, and there's a very special natural power, as you say. Yeah, it's a magical place. So I think your insights are going to be so incredibly helpful for people trying to navigate these changes. I mean, all of these special things that you found and curated to make your place so beautiful. Did you ever think about return on investment? Were you considering like the cost of construction versus the long-term property value, or was this for you like purely a passion project for your own enjoyment?
Once the decision was made, we did what we had to do to make it the best we could make it. And we did some things slowly because we were spending a lot of money. And, it was just like anybody who's redoing a house, my friend just redid her house and she thought it was going to be 750 hard on the nose. And has ended up being 1-1. And, she's managed to find it, but that she wasn't happy about it, and that's in the States. So, just for a reno, not for anytime, Deborah, and you live with the psychology and nerves of everyone as they make a decision between a fabric that's $15 a yard as opposed to $25 a yard.
Yeah. Or the huge spread in terms of appliance costs as well. Yeah. Since we're on the topic. Yeah. So, managing client budgets and managing their resources and managing their threshold for risk, I think also is a huge responsibility in addition to managing distance.
Because that's the trajectory of the last years in terms of real estate and PV. It has gone up and up and up and up and up. So we have no intention of selling this house. In fact, we talk about, who knows how many years, but if we do, once we can't stand on our head in yoga together anymore, we talk about getting rid of the States and staying there. And we have enough room to have someone live in if we needed to. We have every faith in the medical system down there. If you just sort of are gradually getting older and getting closer to the end, that's a good place to be, because right now it's 23 degrees out there. And if I turn this camera around and show you all the snow, you'll be like
horrified. Leave immediately in your hooded Parker.
Right. So, and the streets are not right. The cobblestones are not great either, but either is ice and snow and cold and wind. And that's the thing about the climate there. It's warm. It's beautiful. There's breezes. There's flowers all year long. There's things to look at that, are calming and peaceful and natural. And, that's a lot better than going up and down, into a, 30-story building every day.
Yeah. So well said. If you were to start from scratch today, begin all over again, out those 3 homes and those incredible experiences that you've had, where might you build or invest?
I wish we could be more places at more times, because so many places we go, we love. Honestly, there are so many places that just feel, incredible.
That's right. So if you threw a dartboard again, there'd be some new possibilities. I love
that. Might be the way to do it, actually, because we can't seem to, but we don't want to do. Honestly, the other part of it is, I'm going to be honest about this for people who are thinking about it. It is a lot of work. Yeah. You have to be energetic and you have to be dedicated to it. You have to love it and not be nervous. I mean, Deborah, you must be part psychologist, because the issues, and I, just even spoken to other people, the issues that are going through everyone's heads are very heady and they're important. And if you haven't done the work to come to terms with your own desire and your own commitment, it is really hard to do this.
Well, you inadvertently or not so inadvertently answered absolutely my last question, and that was the advice that you'd have for others. And I think it goes way beyond process and planning, construction, and deeply into psychology and your reasons behind why you want to make a move like that. And if that commitment is deep enough and profound enough for you, you'll go on the journey.
Right.
Half-hearted or uninformed about what it's going to be like, and the cultural differences that you're taking on, you will have decision fatigue. You will have investment fatigue. You will have cultural discomfort fatigue. You'll want to go back where things are more comfortable or familiar, because so much of it is not.
Like maybe somebody does like a VRBO or an Airbnb or something for 2 months, 3 months.
Transition. Yeah. A soft landing. I think, that, people are using this term to sort of test it out, try it before you buy it, create a soft landing for yourself so you can go check it out, see what it looks like, not big commitment, make sure you do that for a few seasons and see if it's really something that you enjoy.
It isn't diving into the pool. It's kind of like stepping in slowly, and so many lovely places that probably are for rent or open up to
15 years of client homes that, sometimes are on the market for rent and sometimes not. So, yeah.
Your guidance and your excellence and your, and the way that you run your company in terms of how you turn things around, how easy it is, how your process is so easy because you have a staff that's dedicated, that does their job and knows where they should be, and they are there. They don't come if they don't need to come. They come and pick it up and take it away and bring it back. And whatever it is,
well, yeah.
And if they're working in the home, same thing is they are not, they know exactly how to walk in, walk out, do their job. And, that's part of the professionalization that you and your company, because there was no crate when we were there, because if there had been, I would not have had to do
I would have loved to collaborate with you. You're an incredible patron of art, architecture, obviously advertising. I mean, your fearlessness of how you started your very first project and then went on to do 3 homes is truly inspiring. And I know it will mean a lot to people, who watch and follow this podcast and are thinking about making that move to Mexico in this year. That advice is just so golden.
Well, and honestly, if they're following this podcast, it means they're following you. There are so many practical things that honestly turn it to someone like you. Like we did with Guadalajara, like we did with the people who knew. We didn't try to pretend to do and know what we did not know or do. You have to have a guide. You have to have a guide, and you're a great guide. And that's something beyond just the actual physical designs knowledge that you have, that you've learned in these years, and is part of what you offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And supported by such an incredible team of artisans. Well, I just can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom and your insights. I've learned even more about your story than I thought I already knew. And it's just incredible to watch your journey and see, where this life you've chosen takes you next. You have lots of years ahead to enjoy your beautiful place on the beach, and there's effortless days and, our opportunity to share time on the mat together. So
yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, Deborah.
Enjoy the rest of your time in New York, and we'll see you back in paradise. If managing a new construction project in an exotic destination is on your bucket list or vision board, Gailanne's nuggets of wisdom surely added value. And if you find these interviews helpful, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, with my huge thanks for supporting this passion project. Just one of the ways we are telling the stories of art, design, and architecture, and keeping Vallarta real.